Hey guys, James Wilson Taylor here for Rock Sound. Your latest news update, as it is, his latest album is on the way. They are back on the cover of Rock Sound, and I'm delighted to say we have Patty and Ronnie both on the line right now. Gentlemen, how are you?
Fantastic.
Yo.
Here
Feeling
it
great.
is.
Feeling great. How are you today?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Lovely to see both of you. And yeah, let's just dive right into it, man, because this is exciting, exciting times for you guys. It's finally announced. We can finally talk about the record that definitely does exist, which is very, very cool to see. And let's just start with, I guess, the title. You know, I love a big, ambitious statement of an album title. It doesn't get bigger than this. I went to hell and back. Lads, talk me through that decision and how this sums up the record.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean it's all in fitting with that I Miss 2003 thing. We need long song and album titles back, and we need them back now. So we're starting it out. We're setting that tone. But yeah, I just think so. I Went to Hell and Back is a song on the record as well. And it totally symbolized and totally wrapped up everything we were saying on this record in a neat little bow and things. It was fantastic. It made so much sense. There was no other title in my mind for the longest time after that was there and sitting in the Dropbox. Made tons of sense because it was all about the struggle, but all about getting through it at the same time. And I think, fans of our previous albums and anyone who lived through the last 2 years will understand what that means and how that feels.
Yeah, very, very relatable statement and emotion on that one, man. And we'll get into the record as a whole. But I guess before we do, Ronnie, this is your first time working full time on a record as a full member of the band, which is very, very cool. Patty and I have had a conversation before about the kind of trials and tribulations and positives and negatives of working remotely in that way. How was it for you, not only working remotely, but also finally coming in as a full member this time in that creative process?
It was really interesting because when we started the process, we were obviously in the same room. And it was like the vibe was really high. Everything was going very positively. We were gearing up for some tours in Japan, Australia. We had obviously intention to land and then go to LA for a month to record the record physically in the same room with everybody. And then COVID hit and it kind of dropped on everybody's head. And it was like, no one really knew the climate and how it was going to go. So we were like, yo, let's just be the first band to record a record on Zoom, and we were just like, we were like hyping it up. We thought we were going to be the ones, little did we know what the next, 2 years would hold. And that would pretty much be like the primary spot to write a record. But no, I think everyone was going through their own problems, and obviously their own struggles collectively. And I think that the one place of solace that we could find a little bit of love and a little bit of light in were the Zoom sessions together. It was a pretty challenging time, I think, getting everyone on the same page and on the same feeling the entire time. Obviously everyone is in a different city, in a different state or a different country, and they're all going through their own challenges. So I think you can hear the ebb and flow of those feelings on the record, where you'll have 3 or 4 songs that are super fucking angry, and then you're gonna have 2 or 3 songs that are so sad, but then you're gonna have a few songs that are they're decorated with happiness as far as the noises that you hear, but the undertones, I think Tom Waits said it, sing me terrible things in beautiful melodies. And all in all, it was a hell of a record to be a part of. Me, Zach, Patty, and Allie, we had a really awesome rhythm going. And when we got in the pocket, I think it shines through on the record in many ways.
Yeah, man. No, well said there. And I think that's something I want to touch on kind of up top here is that general soundscape you guys are playing with, because of course, as we can hear from the singles, there's definitely distinct moments that sound a lot like what we've heard previously from you guys, which you'd expect, but you're playing, especially production wise, in like some really, really new territory for you, which I think works very, very successfully. But it's kind of interesting to hear, I guess, why you would approach. I mean, there's very different types of beats on there. I mean, talk to me, I guess, a little bit about your approach to the soundscape in general of this record.
You want to take that one, or should I?
Yeah, I'll start off, and you'll finish it off. How about that? Yeah, it was really cool letting Zach into the band essentially as a member in that sense, because without without Foley, without a drummer. I know that like everybody plays like a little bit of drums. It was like, oh, okay, like these digital and electronic drum parts that take up in the entirety of some verses and the entirety of some songs for that matter. Like this is not only like fair game, this is actually like so interesting. Like let's lean into this, let's explore this unapologetically. And not only that, while we're doing it, let's like turn the guitars up louder than we've ever done it. And that dichotomy, that duality was like so much fun. And just having the time, just having the freedom. And you know, it's like what sometimes when we do a record, it's anywhere between like 5 to 8 weeks. But when that time's out, you're done. The record stops. We move on to mixing and mastering. This was near 2 years of just like, we can work on this in the background or the foreground forever. Like this record doesn't have to end. Let's like, for better or for worse, because sometimes you need a song to be done for better or for worse. Or otherwise you will work on it until you make it worse all over again. But to really just have that time and that freedom to explore with different sounds, different instruments, different things. And like different is what this band's always been about. It's like from record to record, aesthetically and musically, let's evolve, let's change, let's try shit out, let's get it wrong, but let's get it right at the same time in equal measure. And it was just so much fun. And Zach added something so invaluable. I think, you know, maybe you don't know his name just yet, but I think you're gonna pretty soon. This dude is working on like only the coolest stuff that this scene has to offer right now. So if you haven't already checked out everything he's been doing, you probably know it already, but maybe you just didn't know he was involved, because he's one of the realest and one of like the nicest guys too. So to just have him in the band for like a year and a half was really cool. He's a great guy.
Yeah. No,
knocked out of the park. No, yeah, knocked out of the park. Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating hearing that kind of different sounds. And there's a really nice quote from you guys. Like I say, if you haven't read the mag yet, do go and check it out with these boys on the cover. But there's a really nice quote in there saying how that while the last record kind of inevitably tipped its hat in a very nostalgic way to those bands that inspired you and made you guys want to do it in the first place, this almost feels like the opposite in a lot of ways. You know, tell me a little bit more about that, because it does feel like a very forward-thinking record, you know?
Yeah, I'll just say a little bit and I'll let Ronnie expand, but I just think this is like one of the most exciting times to be a rock band or a participant of the rock scene. Like, it has never been more diverse. It has never been more interesting. It has never been more experimental. It has never been more rooted in the youth. It's like, this is so cool. And the Great Depression, as proud as I am, it was looking back romantically at the past, and let's pay homage to all the bands that inspired us. And I Miss 2003 does that too, but it does it in a way that's really embracing what's new, what is great about the rock scene, and what is here right now. And it just makes you so excited to be a part of rock music. Like the way I felt when I was like 10 or 12 or whatever, picked up a guitar for the first time. It feels and felt very much like that. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, I think that to kind of piggyback off that, as much as everything does feel new and fresh, it's for the first time I feel like we are seeing that wave of what inspired and built us 20 years ago come back to the forefront, you know, with Avril and Travis Barker pioneering this whole crossover between like emo hip hop and guitars. And it's never been more exciting. And a lot of the things that we like leaned into and a lot of the sounds, and that we were just doing what felt good in the moment. And if we felt that feeling that we felt like when we were first listening to music that inspired us, we're like, that's the wave, let's just catch that. Everyone grab your surfboard, we're hitting the fucking beach. That's the wave we're catching today. And I feel like a lot of the songs that came out on the record are just an extension of that feeling, you know, where you don't overthink it, you don't beat it to death. If it feels good and if it sounds good, you know, then let's just catch that wave and let's just ride it until we just barrel roll off of it. So yeah.
It is an exciting moment, I've got to say. It's nice to hear you guys, you know, have that excitement for being a rock band in particular, because, yeah, I mean, it's been said to death at this point through this year, but it really is having a moment in the nicest possible way. And that is what I quite liked about I Miss 2003, as well as that sentiment. It is a little tip of the cap to some, you know, some nostalgia, but all those bands are inspiring this whole new movement at the same time, right? It's got to be an interesting area to explore, but through the ears of this kind of newer record sound.
Absolutely, man. I mean, like the bands that got probably all three of us on this call like into this scene, bands like Blink and Green Day and things, it was always so interesting for me, being much younger, to listen to the bands that like inspired them, like Descendants and NoFX and Bad Religion and Minor Threat and Black Flag and things. And it's so wild now to be older and on the other side of that. It's like, oh, you haven't heard about like all our favorite bands. Like you missed everything. Like it was the coolest. It was the greatest. And that was that song. And that was that video, where, like, if you're interested in rock music right now, this is everything we wish we were doing. This is the blueprint for everything that is happening now. And if you missed it, like, that's fine too. But like, we love this. This is in our DNA completely. Like, we're lifers. This is it for us.
Yeah, I feel like I Miss 2003 is definitely like the passing of a torch, where it's like, hey, if you didn't know these things existed, here's the torch, and now they do. We hosted a listening party just this past week, and there was a handful of listeners in the chat. They're like, I've never heard of this band, but this song's a banger. And it's like, that's production 20 years ago. You know, that song was cut, recorded, and beaten to death on tour 15 to 18 years ago. And it's so incredible to see a full circle moment like that. I mean, that entire track is decorated with references, even sonically. The sonic references, if you really play it close here, it's not just words, you know, it's also sonically massive homage track. And I remember we had like filled up this massive like Google sheet of just like words and lyrics and references. And I remember stepping out of the room with Patty and Zach when we're out in LA, and I was just making some notes for the I Don't Care video. And 15 minutes later, I come back in and Patty had laid the bridge. And I just looked at everybody. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, does anybody know yet how special this is? And Patty just typing away. He's like, no, not yet. I not yet, you know, like I have to hear it in whole, but not yet. And I'm like, this is fucking special. Someone get me in this booth, you know? It was just such a special moment. Yeah, that entire song, it's also the last one that we wrote on the record as well. And Patty could touch on that a little bit more and what that means to us, but it was definitely the cherry on the top, I think.
Absolutely. Well, you highlighted what I think is my favorite, like, dynamic and difference between us about us being in the studio is I am just so like hyper focused with the blinders on. I don't want to celebrate how good the song is for another month, and you're just like
or
such a cheerleader and a hype man, and I love it. And it was just like, oh, like you're letting me know how cool this is right now. But that was one of the biggest struggles about not being like there in person. It's like you don't have that like palpable sense of like, oh, are we like onto something, or are we just like burning hours right now? And I think one of my favorite things to do with Ron is when we leave the studio, we have that entire car journey to decompress and decompartmentalize. It's like, okay, what was cool, what wasn't? And when you come home from like a win, like it feels like you've won like a sports game, and you're like on the drive home and you are just riding that vibe and that adrenaline. That was like one of the highlights of it all for me. So I forgot what you wanted me to say, but you just reminded me.
It's wild to think about that, you know, because sometimes we would talk about it and other times we just turn it up to fucking 10 and we don't say shit for 30 minutes and we just bump the song over and over. I'm not a runner. Anyone that knows me knows that I don't really run like that, but we recorded a couple of these songs on this record. And after the journey home, I got back and I'm looking at Patty and I'm like, I need to go for a run. I've got way too much energy. I'm feeling way too many fucking things right now. I've got to go and run this out. And, you know, a few miles later and I come back and he's like, how was that? And I was like, I think I could probably go to bed now. You know?
Yeah, my favorite moments of drives home were when you were just so fired up and so lost in the song or lost in your thoughts in the conversation, you would miss our exit. And I would just I'd let you just keep missing it by like 5 or 6 exits. I'm like, we're like 20 minutes in the wrong direction. The Airbnb was like way back there, but you were just like so fired up. I didn't want to stop you talking.
There was one time this guy let me drive 40 miles out of the way because I was just on one. And I look over and he's just cracking up. And I was like, what? What's up? And he was just like, you missed so many exits. In fact, we should remap this because we're so far away and we were like 40 miles away. Yeah, there was nothing quite like that.
I mean, that's the ultimate pull quote to put on the posters now, though, isn't it? It's like, banger's so huge, you'll drive the wrong way home. Done. Marketing's done.
But I think when you're growing up, especially like in small towns, obviously we're Midwest boys, you know, by roots and by nature. there was never really anywhere to go. You would just you would pile in the car with your friends and you would just drive, and there's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no destination. You're just together and you're listening to the music that brings everybody together, and you're just enjoying the company. So, and honestly, I feel that way about it. I miss 2003. I feel that way about the record. The way that we order the track listing, we try to pride ourselves on like no skips. If you think about, I was just in a conversation last night about no skip records, you know, and how passionate I am about like Yellow Card, Ocean Avenue, Avril Lavigne, Letting Go, Good Charlotte, Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous, Blink-182, Untitled. If you just go down the list, Boxcar Racer, if you just go down the list, there are no skip records. You just track for track for track for track, you just find yourself in the moment with them as if like you're at the concert and you're just listening to what would be, you know, the set list. And I feel that way about this record as well. I feel like you're going to be able to listen to it from front to back, and you're going to be able to pile in a car with your friends, your family, and you're just going to be able to get lost. And maybe you'll go 15, 30 exits out of the fucking way. I don't know, you know, let us know.
Yeah, let us know how far off maps you guys get when you hear this full record.
So embarrassing. I apologize so hard because he was also so fucking late. You know, we get so far away, and we have another session starting at like 8:30 in the morning, and it's like a 2-hour drive into this specific part of LA. And I'm like, that's my bad. I know what I just did to us in our sleep schedule. That's my bad. But yeah, he's never been, I think, so proud of my, of that, you know?
Yeah, something to be proud of there for sure. I think it's in there, dude. Let's talk about some of these other moments that people maybe haven't heard yet. Now, I've mentioned with you boys before the track with Set It Off, which I've now heard, which is very, very exciting. In Threes, again, completely in there with that new modern shiny production that really, really fits really nicely. Again, just a little bit, I guess, a bit more specifically now, we can talk about it on this track, working with the Set It Off guys and with Geordie Pup as well, which is again a nice little extra color brought into this particular track.
Absolutely. Well, it's wild too, reflecting, because I think you can never really predict what song you're going to write, and I don't think you even have a lot of control over it. Really, and ultimately we were going to write something really major and poppy and up there and sparkly, and this is like one of the most like somber and depressing moments in the song in the coolest way possible. Like, I love where it went, but that was not the song we wanted, like expected to write that day. But I'm so glad we did. It's like a highlight on the record for me, and being in there with Cody. I mean, we have so much history with that band, like first as fans, and then we became like friends, and like toured with them in a couple different countries. They took us out on our first ever North American tour, and then we did Japan together. It was so much fun, but learned so much from Cody as well. I mean, that dude is just, he has this like childlike enthusiasm, but he's really mastered his craft. I learned so much, and I think he's the guy that I learned the most from earliest on about how to be the front person of a band. He, like, it wasn't just about nailing the notes, but it was also what you said in between songs, and I just continue to learn so much from that band. So to just like collaborate with them and just spend an entire day just on the sofa with Cody was like so much cool. It's so much fun. I love the song too. I mean, that doesn't hurt, but just getting to like hang out with Cody all day was just so much fun. It's always fun.
Even as an extension of I think the staple that they are is like a live band, even them as songwriters, and Cody as a songwriters, they've obviously invited us into rooms and in studios the last handful of years, and I've just watched him develop as a songwriter. And he's so incredible. And I like the childlike enthusiasm that he brings, and the attitude and the energy that he brings has the ability to, it transforms an entire room. I mean, everyone, it's a domino effect, and it's just so contagious. And I think that the energy that was there that day, obviously when we toured with Set It Off, a lot of the British guys were like, oh no, Ronnie was Set It Off. It's like the energy, like our energy levels, it's like 8, 9 in the morning. We got like 5 hours of sleep. We have no coffee, but we have each other kind of vibe, you know? And yeah, those guys are some of our best friends in the scene, and we're going to be doing quite a bit with them this upcoming year that we really look forward to. And I think that In Threes was a really cool doorway And I think what happened with me, Patty, Zach, and Cody, and then eventually Jordy, turned into I would say one of the most special moments on the record, in a really cool way. And I'm really happy and really glad that we were able to do that, because it was really last minute. It wasn't really planned. It wasn't something that we had been talking about for 6-12 months. It was a matter of us landing in LA, us wanting to get into the studio, and bring something new to the record to really fill it out. And it was just like a phone call. And then it was, 4 or 5 days later. And then it was, I think we wrote this song in 6 hours, 7 hours. And it was just, you hear it and you're like, no, they spent 6 months on the song. And it's like, man, it was just 4, 5 guys that are passionate as shit about the craft and the song and, the words and the music. Even, watching even like Cody bring out certain elements, like he's very vocal with his production, and he's trying to like, I hear this thing in my head, I don't know how it sounds, but I'm just gonna do my best. And he's just like, oh, and there's gonna be some, I'm sure, some really funny videos that surface about me being an idiot and how much I'm just like so involved. And I'm like, no, I have to hear it 3 more times, please. It was just fun. And I think that's what music, and when you're writing it with your homies, has to be. And if it doesn't feel like that, you change rooms, because there's a million other rooms and a million other writers. And I think that this is just a track of just right room, right people, right song, right moment. And I'm so excited for people to hear it.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's nice as well that obviously there's the connection with you guys. Like you say, you've all been friends for a very, very long time, but it does feel like you guys have both had a bit of a moment in terms of that development of the sound and everything. I think personally, their last album was their best one to date. I think they've really kind of developed as a band in that way. And even in terms of the live show, Patty, I mean, like you say, Cody as a frontman, on the one hand, it sort of looks like he came out of the womb commanding a crowd, but we both know that's not true. And that live show has developed and grown as your guys has. Really nice to see that collaborative process. I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, you guys must be hyped for this joint tour as well, surely, out in the States, right?
Can't wait. Absolutely cannot wait. Yeah. And even just bringing Max over to the UK to do a couple shows with us. I mean, like, just looking back and seeing a drummer who is just like got the biggest smile on his face and just giving it hell. Like, they're just so much fun. They're the same people off stage that they are on. Really great people. And they've always taken care of us. And I just can't wait to just spend a month with them. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, exciting times ahead, man. Exciting times ahead. Well, I mean, in terms of other guests as well, of course, you then have The Word Alive on this record as well, which is very, very exciting. Talk to me a little bit about that collaboration as well. The track is called I Can't Feel a Thing.
We wrote that one as early as we wrote I Don't Give a Fuck. So that one's been that was the first song we wrote with Zach. Right? Yeah. That was our introduction to Zach Jones, was writing that song with him 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then the second song that we had written, which became I Lie to Me, which was a completely different skeleton and fleshed out completely different, but we pretty much just picked it apart, kept a pre-chorus, and then pretty much that was it, really, right? But those were the first 2 songs that we had written with Zach Jones.
Absolutely. Then I forget how we reached out to Telly. I mean, were we just like sending him the songs, be like, this is what we're working on? We just hear you on it. We just hear your voice on this song.
We really wanted to be collaborative with bands on this, and we really wanted it to be. We didn't want it to be like a frontman feature. We didn't want it to be like As It Is featuring Cody Carson. We didn't want it to be As It Is featuring Telly Smith. We really wanted it to be bands coming together with their voices sonically, and we really just wanted to bring the scene together. Obviously, The Word of Alive. Back before I joined As It Is, I toured with those guys before. Telly is one of the most lovely human beings on planet Earth. Through his core, he is such a sweetheart. But yeah, it was one of those songs, I Can't Feel a Thing, where it's arguably probably an outlier on the album, but in a really cool way. It's one of the heavier songs on the album, but also it's one of those things where it was sitting there and I was like, man, does anyone hear Telly Smith of The Word Alive on this fucking song? Because I feel like it was written with him and in mind as like a vocal on it. And we ended up just sending it to him late one night. I think we went out for sushi, had an old fashioned, got in the Jeep, and I just called him. I was like, yo, what are you doing tomorrow? He's like, dude, so good to hear from you. Like, la, la, la. It's like, yeah, why don't you come and sing on this song? And he's like, I'm going to go listen to it right now. And it was like 1 a.m. He was in bed. He went out to his Jeep at 1 a.m, listened to it 5 times. I said, listen to it a minimum of 3 times, and then just call me back and let me know what you think. And yeah, within a week, he was in the studio, and he laid it down. And his voice is just, it fits so perfectly. Him and Patty just smashed that track.
Yeah, really, really nice, really strong collaboration to see there, guys. No, it's a really cool little guest spot. And I guess, you know, this leads me on to the questions of what's going to kind of come next. We know the live show plans are in there. Firstly, from a practical point of view, what stage you guys at in terms of figuring how this is all going to work now? You know, like we said, there's been a few changes and everything. You had Max come over for Slam Dunk and everything. Have you got as far as figuring out how that new setup's all going to work yet?
It's sort of changing from tour to tour, which is actually really exciting because we're sort of learning something with each sort of reconfiguration of the live setup. It's like, okay, like what really worked about this and what could we improve upon and things. But just so excited to be getting back to doing live shows. It feels so weird and so wrong that we were only able to do like 4 shows through the entirety of this year. It's like, that's crazy. We used to do 175 shows a year. And yeah, and it's been really exciting to just look back. You see somebody else playing drums. Maybe you know him really well, maybe you don't. I mean, my friend Luke was playing drums for I Miss 2003, and I don't think you, Ronnie, or Ali had ever met the guy, but he's a great friend of mine. It was so cool. And just introducing people into the lineup and the dynamic, and just see what works, what rocks. But yeah, it's changing from tour to tour, and that feels actually really, really fun and really fresh.
Yeah, again, there's that spirit of collaboration seems to be what's really spurring you guys.
You're going to see a lot of familiar faces sitting on the throne, best seat of the house. You know, kind of looking through the As It Is lens throughout the next touring cycle. It's going to be very exciting, very fun. I'm looking very much forward to it. As much as we miss Foley dearly, it was super strange. You know, even like to be up on Slam Dunk at that crowd, you know, and I just looked back, I was like, damn, that's a lot of hair, Max. You know, it's like it hit me, you know, because when we were prepping for Slam Dunk, you would have thought we were prepping for a fucking world tour, James. Yeah. Like you would have thought we were. I mean, everything that went into getting us overseas to get us just to meet all the guidelines and the criteria. I mean, I almost was left in LA. I almost couldn't even get into the country, you know, and I was like, Patty, you go, the show can go on. You just smack me on tracks, you know? And he's just looking at me. He's like, I don't want to leave you. He's like, I'm going to hug you now. I said, please just go. 10 minutes before the plane left, I ended up managing to get onto it. But you would have thought that we were getting ready to tour probably like 100 shows, 150 shows. And really it was such a stressful time just to get over for the 4, but it was probably one of the most rewarding.
Left you hungry for more, I'm sure. Left you really.
And we needed it, you know, after COVID, man, I think that the fans, I think the bands, I think everyone just needed it. And, you know, think everything to Slam Dunk for just making it happen. Because that weekend went off without a hitch. You know, shout out to everyone that worked it, because what a special moment. Breathed the life into this band. I was like, you know what? Maybe we have another cycle in us. Let's get after it, you know, and it inspired us to really power through 2022 and just to get there. So.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. No, it's nice to see how hungry you guys are for it. Congratulations on this record, man. It's so interesting to see you guys pushing forward in this kind of new way. I'm excited for people to hear it. Again, I encourage the people, go read this new issue with Rock Sound, full interview in there all about it. Thank you as ever, boys. We'll chat to you again soon, all right?
I love for y'all.
Thanks.